What's up, everybody? We're back. Trump just signed the memorandum of understanding out at the Palace of Versailles because that's a place where only good peace treaties have ever been signed. There is no better place actually to sign a peace treaty than the Palace of Versailles because, come on, anyone that knows history knows how great everything turns out when you sign memorandums of understanding there at the palace, especially when there's like a big power, say the United States involved, and like some lower up and coming powers like Iran or Germany, whatever. And we just, try and punish the shit out of them. I will say it is kind of the opposite situation though. Like instead of us just pounding down on somebody we just completely defeated, really who our European allies completely defeated, but in this news scenario, it's a little different because this is now someone, Iran, who has kind of taken it to a bigger power. This bigger power, the United States, is trying to sell this whole thing as a victory, and like we didn't just get embarrassed in one of the stupidest wars the United States has ever undertaken. So I get it. Things are a little different, but why the Palace of Versailles? Why do you have to go for the venue where the worst treaty ever was signed? Why do we have to do that? And maybe someone in the comments will come up with like some worse treaty. Some history buff is going to come in with some ancient Chinese treaty that was signed right before 100 million people were killed in some skirmish in ancient China. Maybe. But as far as I know, the Treaty of Versailles, worst treaty ever signed. So, great stuff. Great stuff here. At least we know a whole lot about what's in this contract because Iran has been telling us, not because President Trump or his administration has been real clear on the whole thing. JD Vance has been doing the cable news tour telling everybody, well, what the Iranians are saying is in this deal is wrong. It's fake news. It's all this crap. And none of these cable news hosts have thought to ask JD Vance, well, then what the fuck's in it, Mr. Vice President? And then if he does get some kind of question along those lines, he'll try and spin his way out of it. Be like, well, we got to pass it before you can see what's in it and kind of shit. But here's what Iran claims is in this damn thing. First of all, there's going to be an immediate and permanent ceasefire and an end of all military operations, okay? An end to military actions not only in Iran, but also related regional fighting, particularly in Lebanon. We're going to come back to that because that one's going to be important. The Strait of Hormuz is going to be reopened to commercial shipping. And remember, that's going to take 6 months to actually come about because Iran put a shit ton of naval mines in there. So the Department of Defense said with Iran's cooperation, it's going to take them 6 months just to clear the strait of all the mines. So next, Iran's going to have control over the strait and may charge a fee for services, whatever the hell that means. There'll be lifting of limited U.S. sanctions on Iran. And so remember, the U.S. has a whole sanctions regime on Iran. We have for a long time, where we say, hey, if other third-party countries are going to do business with Iran, we're not going to do business with those third-party countries. It forces them to only deal with our enemies economically. Then what's going to happen is we are going to release some frozen Iranian assets, 12 billion allegedly, before negotiations even start. And that's just a fraction of them. No new sanctions can come on during the negotiation period, which is going to be 60 days for a broader, more permanent agreement. Iran's reaffirmation, it will not seek a nuclear weapon. And I love that term reaffirmation because it's them essentially saying, we've been telling you the whole time we don't want to make a nuke, and we're just going to reaffirm that here. Finally, they're going to cooperate on international monitoring issues, meaning they'll let in the IAEA. We will restore Iran's access to global oil markets because we had again, sanctions on them. You couldn't use dollars to buy Iranian oil, so I guess we're going to clear that up. And then here's the kicker. Allegedly, there will be economic assistance and reconstruction funding. Iran media has said that this has been a fund somewhere over $300 billion. 325 is a number that's been thrown out there. Even though U.S. officials have said, nah, it's not going to be 325. That's what Iran's saying. And so just so we're clear about this 325 alleged billion, it's not going to be the U.S. Treasury writing a check to Iran for $325 billion. What's going to happen is we are going to send $10 billion to the UAE, or we're going to send $20 billion to Saudi Arabia in the form of weapons, free weapons. And then Saudi Arabia or the UAE is then going to invest $9 billion in Iranian power plants or something like that. So we're going to funnel this money through these other third-party countries and get it to Iran that way, so it doesn't create a total political crisis here, because people would lose their absolute shit if Donald Trump just airdropped pallets of cash in, like what Obama did. And by the way, Trump had said it was I think it was 1.6 billion that Obama sent the Iranians, and that when that happened, when they signed the JCPOA, that 1.6 billion was frozen Iranian assets. That was Iran's money, and we unfroze it, sent it to them on a pallet. And Donald Trump called President Obama a traitor for that. And now Donald Trump may be, again, this is all allegedly because the United States government for some reason can't release what's in this memorandum of understanding, but allegedly the Trump administration is going to launder $325 billion over to Iran for reconstruction, which is fantastic. That's awesome. Why, 1.6 billion makes you a traitor. I wonder what the hell 325 billion makes you. You're just the greatest traitor of all time or something. That's going to be real rich there. So Trump, remember, if you look back, so if you think back on all of those things, and again, it's true, JD Vance made this point, and it's kind of true, that Iran is highlighting only the things that make them look good in this deal. They're not going to highlight the things that make the U.S. look good. But let's just take this framework and assume this is true, because only one government's giving us any information at all. But let's say this is the framework. The U.S. has achieved almost none of its war goals. Because remember, this whole thing was sold in a super chaotic way, but the justification the Trump administration settled on was there could be no nuclear enrichment in Iran. That's not in here. It does not say that Iran's going to stop enriching their uranium. And what's probably going to happen is they're going to say, okay, look, Iran can enrich uranium up to 3%. That's good enough for civilian energy. And all the 60% enriched uranium that they have, that's got to be diluted down to 3% and then used for energy. That's exactly what was happening under the JCPOA. So we gained nothing. If that's where we settle, we gained nothing on that front. The other big goal Trump has stated is he wants to open the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz was open before the war started. So just getting back to the status quo there, I guess, is some kind of victory. At another point in the war, he said, we're going to have regime change. That didn't happen. We started with Ayatollah Khomeini. Now we just have younger, meaner families been murdered by the United States and Israel, Ayatollah Khomeini. So awesome. Good job, President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, for that one. The Iranian people were supposed to be freed from their government. That did not happen. That is not going to happen. The people never rose up and tried to take over their government, because that was never going to happen. So all these big ambitions that the United States had laid out for this whole war, we haven't achieved any of them. And Americans have been killed. I think we've spent, the number right now is $60 billion we've spent on this. We're going to spend another $300 billion rebuilding Iran, it sounds like. And that's even if this whole thing ends up working out. This whole thing could still fall through and end up not working out at all. That takes us back to this Lebanon question, because Iran is saying, hey, this whole peace agreement only is going to make sense if you get Israel to stop invading Lebanon. Bibi Netanyahu has said he's not going to stop, that he is going to establish that buffer zone he wants in Lebanon. I think they're 30 miles in there or something, the IDF. They're going to annex that, and that's going to be a part of greater Israel. So, and again, that's like a big part of what this whole war was about, was, you know, the U.S. could go start this sideshow over in Iran, and then Israel can invade Lebanon and annex the southern portion of that country. They're bombing Beirut right now. There is a full-scale invasion of Lebanon going on. And the whole point of this war was to make Israel the regional superpower there. So they need to take southern Lebanon in order to do that. So Bibi Netanyahu's not going to stop invading Lebanon over this thing. And it's kind of two birds with one stone for Bibi, because if he keeps attacking Lebanon, then Iran may restart the war again, and that's what they want anyways. They want to keep the U.S. and Iran fighting because it weakens Iran. The U.S. has plenty of money. Well, realistically, of course, we're bankrupt, but we're going to keep printing the money to fight the war for Israel. We've got plenty of soldiers. We've got plenty of equipment. Israel doesn't care what happens to any of our people. So whatever, they want the war to keep going. They're going to keep it going as long as they can. So watch out for the next, I don't know, in the next 60 days for Israel to do something to undermine these negotiations. And I think that's why Trump decided to sign the MOU in France today. He was supposed to wait until Friday to sign it, but I think he was afraid the Israelis were going to do something, and, you know, drop a nuke on Beirut or something, to undermine this whole thing and blow up the peace negotiations. And Trump came out and even said he doesn't see eye to eye with Bibi on this. He's got to stop bombing Beirut. Trump said verbatim, Bibi doesn't need to level an entire apartment building every time someone from Hezbollah walks in there. Hezbollah being the Lebanese terrorist organization. Which is true, right? That's what they did to Gaza. Like some guy from a terrorist organization walks into an apartment building with 500 people and they level the thing. So, you know, daddy's home, right? This whole thing's fucking nuts. It's kind of crazy. So Trump ends up just signing the MOU in France and saying, hey, we're done. This whole thing's over. Bibi can't undermine it, but he's going to. What the U.S. really needs to do, if Bibi does try and undermine this peace negotiation, is just back out anyways and say, fine, you guys are on your own. If Israel wants to go fight Iran, go ahead. They can do it without our money, without our soldiers, without our support. They want to invade Lebanon without us backing them up, whatever. Go ahead. They want to claim that it's an existential threat for them. Okay, fine. Go ahead and fight that war. You don't need us for that. Go ahead and do it. Let's listen to, but man, you've got the neocons really freaking out about this peace deal because they want this thing to go on. They're the Israel firsters are like, man, we need this war to continue. There can't be a peace deal. We've got to have the war go on, baby. We need as much death and destruction as we can possibly get. So that way we can weaken Iran and its proxies, and Israel can be the regional superpower. That's the whole point here. Victory was never the point. They didn't need a World War II style win in order to claim victory here. They just want as much chaos in their enemies' territories as possible. So let's see why the neocons are so mad.
Leaders of the United States of America. I'm noticing that Mohammed Khalibaf, who will apparently on Friday be literally a vice president of the United States. I cannot express to you how stomach turning that is. I don't care who the vice president is. I don't care who the president is, leaders of the United States of America in a photo op with a mass murdering terrorist supporter like Mohammed Khalibaf shaking hands 6 months after he blew away 42,000 innocent people in the streets and weeks after he was his administration.
Stop it right there. This claim is absolutely nuts. The 42,000 people in the streets thing, not verified at all. 42,000 people would be one of the biggest massacres in human history in that short of a time. I think they're claiming 42,000 in like a week were killed. There's no fucking way that actually happened, and no proof's been given that happened. And then Ben Shapiro's going to sit there. The vice president is going to take a photo op with a murderer, a dictator from another country, and not even the actual dictator. I don't know if that's the president of Iran that he's talking about there, but he's like, we're gonna take a photo op with a murderer, like our presidents haven't, talked to Putin before, like our presidents haven't gone to Saudi Arabia and met with the crown prince there. Like we didn't have a president very famously go to Yalta and meet with Joseph fucking Stalin. President Trump just went and had a photo op with President Xi over in China. That dude has enslaved millions of people. Probably over 1 billion people live in like abject poverty in China because of their authoritarian government. Trump went and met with Kim Jong-un, like the worst human in the world, a guy who keeps his people in such an abhorrent communist state to where they're 6 inches shorter than their cousins over in South Korea because they're so malnourished. Everyone was cool with that. But as soon as the vice president wants to go sign a peace treaty with Iran, one of Israel's enemies, all of a sudden the U.S. gets real moral. We got this real moral high ground. We just can't take pictures with people who are murderers. We could take pictures with our own CIA directors and all that kind of stuff. And, we can go take pictures with Bibi Netanyahu. That's not a problem. Bibi killed a lot more than 42,000 people. And those are his people. I don't care what they could say, well, the Iranians killed 42,000 of their own people. Yeah. What do you think the Palestinians are? They don't have their own nationality. They don't have their own state. They're controlled by Israel. So when Bibi Netanyahu goes and kills tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, those are his people. But Ben Shapiro would have no problem going and taking a picture with Bibi. Just saying. Let's keep watching. Let's see what Ben Shapiro's got here now.
Was firing missiles at literally all of our allies in the region and continues to support every terrorist group in the region and is currently continuing to control the strait. Like right now, it is not fully open for business unless the Iranians have, quote unquote, decided it is. The idea here is that somehow this administration and the deal that has been cut weakens Hezbollah. I'm not seeing it so much. I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's there. Again, we haven't seen the MOU for the 1,000th time. We haven't seen the MOU.
And here we go. I love how it's just a given that the MOU has to weaken Hezbollah. And the neocons again will talk about, well, Hezbollah was behind the Beirut bombing that killed our Marines, 40 years ago. Okay, if that was our casus belli for war, why didn't we do it 40 years ago? Reagan pulled our troops out after that and said, no, we're not going to escalate here. We're going to move away from this. That's how far back they got to go to say Hezbollah is the enemy of America. Now, again, Israel's got no problem with Al-Qaeda being in charge of Syria. Those are the people that actually took out our Twin Towers. Al-Qaeda literally runs Syria right now, but that's okay because in the Middle East, they got the shirts and skins. All the Muslims there don't really like each other. So Al-Qaeda is enemies with Iran and they're enemies with Hezbollah. So since Israel is enemies with Iran and Hezbollah, they're fine supporting Al-Qaeda taking over Syria. So the whole point here is that I don't know why it's just a given that Hezbollah is like our main enemy here, that the United States needs to give a shit about whether this MOU weakens Hezbollah or something. We shouldn't give a shit about Hezbollah. They have not attacked the United States. They haven't come here to the homeland and knocked down our towers like Al Qaeda did. So it's complete bullshit that we have to sit around and care about whether this MOU weakens Israel's enemies. I don't give a shit if it weakens their enemies. I give a shit about opening the strait back up and getting our people the hell out of there so they're not being killed by Iran anymore. Fuck dealing with Israel's enemies. They can fight their own fight.
That's not because of me. I would like to see the MOU. I think you would like to see the MOU. Hell, I think we'd all like to see the MOU. If Israel is not a party to the actual talks, which they are not, they have not been included in the talks. If Israel is not a signatory to the agreement, which they are not, how in the world could you tie Israel's hands when it comes to self-defense in Lebanon while Hezbollah is firing rockets and drones over the border at Israeli citizens?
Perfect question, Ben Shapiro. Thank you. Israel wasn't consulted in the MOU. So how could their hands be tied? How could the U.S. ever even think to tell Israel what to do? Maybe that's because we pay all their fucking bills and they couldn't exist without us. That's why they have to listen to what we say, because they're our client state. So they do what we tell them to do, or we take all their money away from them. That's how it works when they're our fucking client state. I don't care if they think they should have been consulted and weren't, or they're butthurt or something. Then give all the fucking money back. Give it all back. Give all the weapons back and go fight your own fight. You can fight it however you want. And we're not going to sit here and bitch about it. We complain about how Israel treats the United States and pushes these wars, continues to drag us into these conflicts in the Middle East because we have to pay for it. And then after we pay Israel to blow all these places up and destroy all this shit, kill all these innocent people, then we have to pay to rebuild the goddamn place. $325 billion is what we're going to end up giving Iran after we spent $60 billion destroying. Pay for your own fucking wars, guys. And then it doesn't matter. Then we won't tie our hands. Then if you want to say, oh, it's, self-defense or something, okay, fine. And that huge-ass apartment complex they blew up in Beirut was retaliation for Hezbollah sending 2 drones out into the desert and blowing up a sand dune. 0 people killed, 0 injuries. That's what it was retaliation for. And I get it. Like, Hezbollah attacked Israel on October 7th. So I'm not even saying that, their annexation of the southern part of Lebanon isn't, compliant as a just war. I think it could. I think you make a good argument, actually, of all the conflicts Israel has, that the Lebanon one is the most justified. But when you rely on us to pay for your wars and we tell you, hey, we're negotiating a peace deal here, and I know they blew up a really important sand dune or something, but you're going to have to let this one go since we just gave you $30 billion to level your occupied little Gaza Strip. They need to fucking listen. Because fuck them. That's why we shouldn't be giving them anything anymore. They don't give a shit about us. They think we're idiots. We pay for all their shit. And then they tell us what to do. And then they bitch about it when we say, no, you know what? You got to listen to us for a minute, because we're the superpower and you're the tiny little client state. They say, people like Ben Shapiro can go, well, but why didn't we consult Israel? Why didn't we do what they want? Why can't we just let them be in charge? Because we're America first now, man. And fuck you guys. That's why. That's really all they need to know. Fuck it. Let's keep listening to Ben here.
Shall we say that this is not a popular MOU, from what I understand, in Israel? And again, Israel, they were
Who gives a fuck?
flying jets alongside American jets during this whole operation. Iran was firing at American soldiers during this whole operation. So playing halvesies is a bit strange. If we release funds, or if we tell our Arab Gulf state allies to release funds to Iran, it doesn't have to be American taxpayer dollars. That is us releasing money to Iran. If you unfreeze money to a terrorist group, that is in fact money going to a terrorist group. It does not have to come from American. That's sleight of hand. It's rhetorical sleight of hand. I was not under the impression that you and I would be paying taxpayer dollars to go straight to Iran. But if we press people to release money to a terror state in order for them to continue to toll the strait and to exert control whenever they feel threatened, or for them to rebuild their ballistic missile and nuclear capacities, that is a gigantic mistake. To go back to the 5 standards of a good deal versus a bad deal. A bad deal would look like continued nuclear development. A bad deal would look like continued ballistic missile development. A bad deal would look like funding of terrorism abroad continuing. A bad deal would look like continued Iranian control over the strait and tolling of the strait. And a bad deal would look like more funding going into Iran.
Oh, he's right about that. I'm not saying this is a good deal. I mean, obviously it's a shit deal. Trump was backed into, the corner. He put himself in this situation. I don't mean to make it sound like he's got no agency or something. But yeah, Iran is going to keep funding their proxies. There's going to be a bunch of money flowing in there. They're going to keep enriching their uranium. And yeah, it's going to be a problem. It's always been a problem because there's a pretty big conflict in the Middle East going on, and there has been for a really long time. The good news is that it's 10,000 miles away from us, and we don't need to be fucking around with it anymore. We don't have to deal with it. It's not our fight. Let them fight over their sand dunes. We don't care anymore. We got plenty of natural resources here. We don't have to go to Iran for oil, especially if we convert a lot of our infrastructure over to nuclear, which we should be doing ASAP. But who am I to talk shit? Whatever. Let's go to another one of our good friends here. Let's queue up. Let's go listen to another friend of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, the great one, Mark Levin. Take it away, Marky Mark.
Are we committed to protecting Hezbollah so it can continue to attack Israel and continue to brutalize the people in Lebanon? This is the lifeline that Iran is depending on. Well, if we are, then this deal won't stand. It won't stand for long, even during the Trump presidency. Israel will not be able to adhere to what would be a suicide pact. The Israeli people won't put up with it. The prime minister won't put up with it. We should not accept it either.
We're going to stop it already right there. So we're a little choppy here today, but you get that? If Hezbollah is allowed to stand, then Israel's not going to stand for this MOU. I love the just implicit assertion there that if Israel doesn't stand for this MOU, then it's not going to hold. As if Iran and the United States can't come to a separate peace and just say, deuces, we're out of here. That's just like, that would blow Mark Levin's mind so bad that something like that could happen, or that the majority of Americans would even support that, which they do, by the way. In his mind, Israel just has veto power over our foreign policy. And he just can't even accept that we might say, hey, actually, Israel, you got this. You're a small country, but you punch way above your weight. We'll just say that. So go ahead, take them out. Go ahead, fight this fight. You don't need us. Mark Levin can't stand for that because the United States has to fight Israel's wars for them. In his mind. Apparently. Let's keep listening.
Because remember, Hezbollah has attacked us. And when Israel is forced to defend itself,
he's again referring back to the Marine barrack bombing over 40 years ago.
Including preemptively against Hezbollah in Lebanon. And remember, they're not at war with Lebanon. They have a peace deal with Lebanon. They've never been at war with Lebanon. And it is said to be in violation of the deal. We saw this play out earlier. Providing the Iranian regime with a strategic opportunity to attack Israel, claiming it's defending its ally, and that Israel violated the deal. What then? Will Israel become a pariah? And will it be admonished? Iran's counting on it. So is Hezbollah.
So you get it? What Mark Levin is saying here is that this deal can't stand because if it lays out the framework for there has to be peace between Lebanon and Israel, that just can't stand because he's taking it as a given that Israel's going to keep attacking Lebanon. Of course, they're going to keep invading and they're going to annex more of Lebanon. He's taking that as the conclusion. And so then he says, well, this deal is just political maneuvering by Iran to say, well, if Israel keeps attacking Lebanon, then they're breaking the deal. And now they're going to be the global pariah. And now they're the ones who have, violated this peace treaty. It's like, yeah, no shit. That's true. They should stop invading Lebanon. And if Hezbollah, if they stop and pull back to their borders and we say, hey, there's a peace deal, everything's good, and Hezbollah attacks again, okay, fine. Now we've got a just war. Okay. And again, I think that Israel's got the best case for invading Lebanon than they do of any other country. Again, I've said that before. I'll say it again. I think that's true. But if you're going to depend on the United States for all your military aid, to pay for all your wars, to fight your battles for you, sometimes you got to give that up and say, yeah, this other terrorist group, they attacked us, they wronged us. But if we want daddy to pay for all our wars, then we better follow his rules. Daddy, of course, being Trump in the United States. So, sorry, Mark Levin. Sometimes you're going to be told what to do. You and the rest of the Israel lobby and the 9 million Israelis don't get to call the shots for the rest of the world. I know he kind of just takes that as his conclusion, but that's the truth. At least it should be the truth. It may not be the truth. Israel really does get to call. It seems like they have some outsized influence. This is Cenk Uygur likes to point this out, that Israel is a country the size of Papua New Guinea. And I couldn't imagine us going and fighting a bunch of wars for Papua New Guinea. So they punch above their weight. I'm going to give them that. They seem to really have it all together. Let's listen to this little known influencer, a guy who maybe some people know his name and recognize him, maybe they don't. Let's listen to him respond to Mark Levin, because honestly, he's a little more fiery than I typically get on here, but he kind of sums the whole thing up pretty well. Let's listen to some guy you guys may or may not recognize here. So we'll just let that speak for itself. Fuck Mark Levin. A fat, moodiest little piece of shit and a pussy. So, fair enough. A fair analysis by the Nick Fuentes. So, let's see. I think that's about all we've got today. I mean, we listened to the neocons already. I mean, they just make the argument. We could just kind of sum it up again that, like, well, Israel is being left in the dark, so, this process isn't fair. Like, yeah, who gives a shit? They're not in charge. Fuck them. They get to be left in the dark. Who cares? They're not the superpower. We can go negotiate whatever we want without them. We don't need any of their approval. We don't need any of that. We're the superpower. We pay them. We're the ones in charge. They're our welfare baby mamas, and we're the daddy that apparently just can't leave her alone. And then they say, well, and that's the argument I get the most, man. When this whole thing started, of course, we came out against the war immediately. Said this was going to be bad. It was going to ruin Trump's presidency. That there's very little chance this ended up going a good way. And of course, we were absolutely right. And the neocons came out and they'd always opposed Trump. They've hated him the whole time. And, Ben Shapiro famously said he's never going to vote for Donald Trump. And then somehow he knew in 2024 to vote for him and support him. And what do you know? Donald Trump comes out and essentially becomes a neocon in his first year of his second term. Maybe Ben Shapiro knew, since Miriam Adelson was giving him $250 million that she was going to be able to convince him to go to war with Iran. Not saying there's any proof of that, but I'm sure Ben Shapiro's met Miriam Adelson and could probably take her temperature pretty well. So what the neocons ended up saying when this war was launched is, this is a great thing. This is why we, supported Trump the second time, blah, 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 blah. Now that it's all gone to complete shit, they have stood up and said, no, we can't have a peace deal. We can't have this memorandum of understanding, not just because Israel's not in charge, but because then we're taking the L. It's like the old stock trading term. Like, it's not a loss until you take it. That's how the neocons operate foreign policy. They're just like, if we just keep committing to this war, you can think back to like being in Iraq for years and years and years, being in Afghanistan for 20 years. We're still in Somalia. Their foreign policy doctrine is just, fuck it. It's not a loss until we take it. Keep the boots on the ground, keep killing people, keep spending trillions of dollars, and kick it down the road to the next administration. That is their foreign policy doctrine. So predictably, when Donald Trump said, hey, this isn't working, the regime's not going to fall, the people aren't going to rise up, we're not getting the nuclear dust, we got to come up with a peace deal, all the neocons throw their hands up and say, well, you know what? It would have worked if we were just committed enough. This whole war would have gone great, except the American people are just little bitches and can't stand up for all these wars in the Middle East. When really, it's the other way around. It's all the neocons that are the little bitches that won't actually go out and fight these wars, that want to send everybody else to go fight them for Israel and for whatever else their agenda is. These people are never the ones that actually go up and volunteer for the military and go fight these wars in the Middle East. They're the ones that sit behind their keyboards and say, well, this whole thing would have just, it would have gone really well if we would have just put more boots on the ground. If we would have just dropped more bombs, if we would have just stayed in Iraq longer, we might have finally found the weapons of mass destruction. That's their foreign policy, man. That's their response to this whole thing. When I ask neocons, hey, what now? Do you look at this and think that's a success? That's the answer I get. It was, well, we just didn't go far enough. It's just like talking to the damn socialists, man. Like, oh, yeah, the Soviet Union wasn't real socialism. Sorry, you don't get to use that as an example. China, not real socialism. Sorry. North Korea, not real socialism. Sorry. None of that. You don't get to point at any of those examples. It's the whole just no true Scotsman thing. They will just keep going and going and going and just kicking the failures down the road. And then they'll say the entire time, well, it's just because we didn't go far enough. It's just because those damn American people couldn't be convinced to spend another $1 trillion. They just couldn't give up one more of their kids to fight these wars. The whole thing is so fucking ridiculous. It's completely unfalsifiable. The whole thing's a counterfactual. They won't own any of these wars and just say, yeah, you know what? We fucked it up. Sorry. We're actually not going to stand. There are people that still defend the Iraq war. You can still go online and find these neocons that sold the war and its lies to begin with in Iraq, and they'll still be there saying, yeah, it really would have gone well. We didn't commit to it. We just should have stayed a little longer and helped the provisional government along just a little bit more. And then maybe 1 million people wouldn't have died, which is, of course, complete bullshit. But that's what they say. We'll see. I think Donald Trump is the last president that's going to get away with this war in the Middle East. And I really hope that's true. I never thought I'd say that after his first term because he was the anti-war guy. But man, they got his ass. And I think he knows it. I think he knows he was duped by Bibi and by Miriam Adelson. And I don't think he's going to get tricked into something like this again, which unfortunately it's too late. He's kind of given his presidency the biggest black eye that I thought he would ever get. I should say it's a bigger black eye than I ever thought he was going to get, especially on the foreign policy front. Trump won. His first term had the best foreign policy of any president in the 2000s. Undisputed. It wasn't even close. And man, then he believed the neocons. They just wanted one more war. Like, please, Mr. President, we just one more war in the Middle East. We just need the big one. Just one more. And he listened to him. Which is messed up, man. They took a good president from us. But hopefully he can, at least I think he'll try and make up for it the next 3 years. He'll never admit he was wrong, but I hope he makes up for it. I hope he's successful after this and that we can get out of this damn quagmire with minimal damage. Minimal damage, of course, meaning, the strait actually opens up without being told and all that stuff. So, again, complete disaster, but hopefully it's over. It's looking that way. We can be hopeful. So, all right. Thanks, guys.